Chris Avina with American Outdoor News. Today we have Andy McCartney with Bowden Tactical and Bowden Manufacturing. Andy, thanks for coming to see us today.
Oh, happy to be on.
So tell me a little bit about Bowden Manufacturing. That's more of the more of government contracts, things of that nature.
It is, pretty general purpose machine shop. We, our intent is to have our customers feel like we're the next best thing to have in their own in-house shop for the CNC production parts that we make. So, we spend a lot of time communicating and working with the engineering and quality teams of our customers, as well as the purchasing folks that are handling logistics, to make sure that it feels just like an extension of their own stuff. We do a bunch of government stuff. We do a lot more of second and third tier to government stuff, and a lot of defense stuff, and then some general industrial. We got aerospace certified, guys, probably been 15 years ago or so now, and ISO 9000 turned into AS 9100, which is what we are now. And so service in the aerospace market has been a big part of what we've been going after and what we've been doing, and it's that market that kind of stays steadily going along until a global pandemic comes along, and then everybody stops feeling comfortable flying airplanes, and so that industry is really went through the ringer at the beginning of the pandemic, and now is racing to try and come back as fast as possible, even though it's a very challenging job market and a very challenging supply chain market that essentially they really took down to nothing, and now they're trying to rebuild. So it's been it's that mainline business of our manufacturing stuff has been, it started back in 1952. I wasn't here at that point. I was a little before my time, but we've continued to try and do a lot of that industrial and defense related stuff.
Do you find that your business changes with each administration?
There's certainly a cyclical nature. I think it changes more when there's a shift from party to party, right? So when the same party stays in control for multiple terms, then that doesn't create as much change as when we go back and forth. And I think especially when you're in the defense zone, as we, and I'll never forget when Obama won the election, and leading up to that, the kind of the Republican administration that was there, they want to make sure the troops can stay protected, and so they have some ability to exercise their budgets and stuff, and so they were buying, and it's partly inherent in the government cycle that they get certain budget for the year, and if they don't spend it all, they don't get it the next time, right? So there's a lot of what you hear is that stereotypical end of the fiscal year buying. Yeah. And so when there's an election cycle, it feels like that, that leading up to that, if a Republican administration feels like they're going to lose, then they'll start buying extra before the end of that fiscal year, even before the election. And then once the election happens, they're still there until the new administration comes in. And so that there's more buying that goes on maybe than is typical, when a Republican administration is outgoing. But it does, obviously the laws, can change from, administration to administration, and, obviously depending on what's going on in Congress and the Supreme Court. Certainly as we've gotten more into the tactical market, that's had a lot more direct impact than just government defense buying, because now, the red legislation and stuff in the tactical market tends to make things oscillate dramatically faster.
Now, Bowden Tactical, you manufacture kits.
So we do, yeah. So we started with Bowden Tactical. So we had been doing a lot of defense stuff, and one of the times where the gun market was growing, the ARs and commercial gun market was growing, we got some contract work to make handguards for, I think there was 7 or 8 different OEM builders, and so that kind of got us. We dipped our toe in the water to use other people's extrusions to make handguards, and so it was good engineered product for us. We were learning a lot pretty quick over different ways to make the parts and different ways to make sure that we were meeting the mill standard, Picatinny rails and stuff.
Brent to engineering, please. Brent to engineering.
Sorry, we got real live action going on. That's the actual shop.
You actually have a running operation.
Got the operation behind me. But so we learned a lot, and then as the market was going up and down, there was a downturn that started, and so we found ourselves in a spot where we had a customer that had ordered a lot of parts and then didn't want them, and so as we were looking to see, hey, how do we play in this market? We had somebody say, hey, if you can make a stock handguard, we'd love to get some of that, and so it was one of those where the initial conversation sounded like, hey, if you could get me a 7-inch handguard for $30, I'd buy 10,000 of them. And I'm not a big gun guy, but I could do that math in my head that says, hey, this is probably a problem worth solving. So we solved the problem. We brought the $30 7-inch handguard, and to which the person who had asked us, a big distributor, had said, well, did I say $30? I meant 22. And so we're like, come on. But so at this point, now we'd gotten an extrusion, we had a base level, basic design, and so we said, hey, let's go talk to some other people and see who might want a kind of a pre-engineered handguard design. And so that's what really got us into the market. We started producing for a couple of the bigger suppliers of product, and we started private labeling designs, and that's really what put us on the map and made that business take off, because we are significantly less expensive to get a custom handguard design than really anybody else in the marketplace to do any kind of. I mean, there's some guys like Unique ARs where you can get a one-off that is really cool stuff, but it's not something that, for a small builder to set themselves apart and set their AR apart, we provide a very cost-effective way to make a signature look AR, because the handguard is, let's say, 70% of the visual difference between one AR to the next, right? And so that opportunity to private label for folks and create a design with them, we probably have 60 or 70, actually I think it's over 70 now, different companies that we've developed designs and built in production for them. We have low minimums, 50 pieces, and very modest engineering charges, like $2,500 to design your own thing, where, the biggest thing, the other big handguard companies at the time, it was a 1,000-piece minimum, right? So a 1,000-piece minimum on a roughly $100 handguard starts to feel like real money. And so for us to do a 50-piece minimum, of an $80 handguard or whatever, it's just a totally different equation. So
that's able to exploit the smaller market.
Right. And so once we did that, as we started to see options for providing other parts and components to the people that we were building handguards for, and so we expanded our line. We started making grips. We started making other stuff, and said, if we did this, we could make kind of a baseline stock, quote unquote, stock handguard that some people just need handguards, and they want them to be and need them to be American made for their customer base, which we appreciate. And so then the opportunity to take that, and we had kind of what we called our foundation line, and yet some of the folks said, hey, when there have been supply hiccups dealing with overseas suppliers, they said, hey, what we really want is a cost-effective, domestically produced handguard. And so we ended up designing a new extrusion, and we came out with our cornerstone line, which is really designed to compete with, the foreign source product that was in the marketplace, where it was still a little, you could get all sorts of stuff, but it's just a good quality handguard that is made here in this, right back there, and was designed to minimize the manufacturing costs and be competitive with those. And so, that had us, now that we had a bunch of stock products, and we said, okay, hey, how about we get into the retail space? So we designed a little retail store display that I think we're in 130 some stores now across the country, where we have our what we call an A-Architect line. So it's the word architect with the big AR with a little rifle in between. This is part of our branding. But to support builders, guys and gals who want to build, especially building their first one, we provide a lot of content to help people. And that's where, as you alluded to, we've now got kits where getting a kit, everything but the lower. So we don't have an FFL. All we do is supply pieces and parts that can be used, but we can send it as a kit so that somebody, if if a gun store or a range or a dealer wants to host a class, right? Hey, get a couple of kits, and you can have people learn how to build an AR, and you can teach them and show them, and then an opportunity. Obviously, if they want to buy any other accessories and or upgrade and certainly have a place to shoot, that's a great opportunity for those stores to build a customer base. So that's kind of been our approach. We set up a website that's byoar.com for buildyourownAR.com, and so we've done some direct to consumer stuff there, and then take that Architect brand out to the marketplace in a retail environment. For us, being longtime contract manufacturers, it was a new spot for us. We had not done retailer, we had not dealt with distributors, and so it's been a learning experience, and it's now, I think, been 4, 5, 6 years now that that we created this separate Bowden Tactical as a company, just really for marketing purposes, to go into directly to that tactical market. And so we're continuing to figure out, hey, what new products do we offer? How do we make sure that the word can get out, that people can get their own custom designs pretty easily, especially relative compared to what else is in the marketplace for people getting custom stuff. So that's kind of been the path that we've walked with the Bowden Tactical, from just starting out making, as if it was a regular Bowden manufacturing job. Hey, here's a handguard with an extrusion, to now having our own product line and our own brand that we're putting in the marketplace.
Well, I know it has a great look and it has an extremely comfortable feel when you're holding a complete kit, when it's fully assembled, and it fires smooth too. So it's I got to say, it's a really good product. But we're going to take a quick break here to acknowledge some of our sponsors. Underwood Ammo, always a standard of excellence. Pyro Putty and Phone Scope, always innovative with their products. And we're going to hear from Hunt of a Lifetime, and we'll be right back.
We love our children. We protect them. We guide them. We prepare them for life in the world. With all that we do, from deep in our hearts, we cannot control all things. Life-threatening illnesses and disabilities affect far too many of our children each year. While we cannot change the circumstance, we can make dreams come true. Dreams to provide hope, to provide spiritual healing and strength, to provide moments of happiness and relief in the hardest of times. We can give a glimmer of light and hope in a time of darkness and despair. Join huntofalifetime.org to help make dreams come true, to provide hope for children with life-threatening illnesses and disabilities. Hunt of a Lifetime is a non-profit organization fulfilling dreams for hunting and fishing trips to youth 21 and under with life-threatening illnesses and disabilities. Visit huntofalifetime.org to learn how you can make a difference.
Okay, and we're back. All right, now, Andy, there's a lot going on in the industry that could potentially influence your business. Have you had any adverse effects from the banking industry or the credit card industry, especially on the tactical end?
So definitely, I mean, on the tactical side, there's certain, as we were setting up our direct-to-consumer website, we were limited in the credit card processing companies that we would use, and fortunately, in exhibiting at some of the shows and being at some of the trade industry shows, we ran into and met a number of folks that specifically on the opposite, where they're targeting that industry for helping them, as opposed to targeting that industry for saying, hey, we don't want to participate in that at all. And so we've seen some of that, and we have a regular kind of our Bowden Manufacturing credit card processor, and then we have our Bowden Tactical credit card processor, because it's not the same, because our manufacturing, we use Shopify, and that's not one that you can use in the tactical market. And so, hey, we've had to adjust, and there are certainly, I think the other one that is noticeable for us is some of the shipping companies. And,
Yeah.
and, you know, we do machine products, right? And yet, if they have, some of them have had, if they have the sense that, hey, these are gun parts, then they don't want anything to do with it, and so they've refused to pick up shipments and stuff. And you know, it's you know, the fact. I mean, it's one of those things where, okay, if, like when we went into our credit card processing, we knew that there were some people that had issues, and so it was clear to steer, you know, go down a different path. And the challenge has been is when all of a sudden a policy changes by a company, and now you have a pickup that doesn't get made because somebody decided, hey, I'm not going to pick those parts up. And so that has been more challenging to deal with. And again, it's you know, trying to do good business. You know, there's people that want to support our industry, and there's some people that don't. And hey, finding those that want to support it within what we're trying to accomplish is, yeah, you find those partners and then you work with them.
Yep. Now, I know the ATF is coming out with something. It's going to be HR 2021, I think, somewhere around there. That's going to redefine the lowers. You know, what needs to be serialized, what don't need to be serialized, what defines an 80% lower, or is it going to now be an 83% lower? Things of that nature. Even the periscoping stocks, things of that nature is going to fall into that type of bill. Now, how will something like that affect your business?
Well, and so obviously until legislation is passed, it's really hard to know because there's so much negotiating that happens and how things change as they get toward the closing stages. But I mean, certainly, you know, we have this balance in the gun industry, right? There's people that are doing, you know, bad things with a gun, and you know, you have people that obviously are mentally sick or ill or whatever that are doing some crazy stuff, and it makes a bad, you know, mark on the industry. At the same time, you know, that, I mean, you know, we have an opportunity that you know, we have rights that we should be able to uphold, and the ability to defend ourselves. So I think as these bills come through, and I think, you know, it's interesting, you know, we've talked a lot around here about how the ATF will put out an opinion, and then when does their opinion become law, when you know, stuff gets passed through Congress, and then obviously then it's all subject to going through Supreme Court review. And so you know, I think the opportunity for us to take it one step at a time, you know, and deal with what makes sense based on the current set of circumstances, and recognizing that, you know, this is one of those industries where that can change day in and day out. We just don't know, right? And so the opportunity to make good decisions, you know, we certainly, you know, and you know, Jim is our resident gun guy here. I mean, you know, hey, we want stuff to be done by the book, right? And you know, we want to be able to say, hey, we do exactly what you're supposed to do, what's required by law. And you know, we don't have an FFL, so we're not making guns. We're making component parts and accessories. And if we have to start serializing handguards or grips or uppers or whatever else we're making, hey, we're going to play by the rules. And some of those rules will add cost to what we're doing. We understand that. And hey, we want to be able to do good business, and, you know, make products that people want to use, that are comfortable and very, very functional and aesthetically pleasing. And if we got to put an extra serial number on something, so be it. If we have, I mean, we're an aerospace shop, so we trace material traceability because we know we have a bunch of parts that go on airplanes, right? So for us to adjust how we do traceability, I mean, we're already tracing it from the moment it's, you know, the aluminum or the steel or whatever is made and certified, and before it comes in, and we're tracking it all the way through our shop. So for us, some of the restrictions / regulations about being able to trace stuff and serialize it and all that stuff, it's a potential additional burden on us, but it's not something that we don't, you know, there's nothing that I've heard yet that feels like it's something that we're not prepared to be able to handle and work through.
It's cumbersome, but it's not going to influence you one way or another. It's basically going to determine what constitutes a unfinished frame.
Right.
So that, you know, might give you an extra step, but it's not really gonna affect your business.
Yeah, and we don't deal in, because we don't have an FFL, we're not making lowers.
Yep.
And we had been asked more than once to make 80% lowers, and I mean, we have enough other stuff that we're doing that's never really come into the zone as something that we should start doing. And obviously, in light of, what you're talking about, it doesn't make sense to try and get into that business. And as
This time.
machinists, we've seen some of the parts that we've made that are taken by, somebody in their basement, and, it's not functioning the way they want, and it's because they haven't been as good a machinist as needed to be to make it function, right? And
Yeah.
so, to think about making something that's an 80%er and then counting on the functionality of whatever product that we're producing that would have our name on it, dependent on the skill of somebody in their basement, to have it operate as they want, that doesn't excite me, right? I'd rather have the quality determined in the building right behind me, so that we know that, hey, we're making good stuff that's going to go in and assemble and be what we've sold and put out there. So we certainly, I mean, anything that doesn't function as it's supposed to, we want it to come back here so we can replace it, understand what happened, and ultimately we stand behind everything we make. And if we make a mistake, hey, we want it brought back in this building so we can learn from it, and we can get the person who's got it a product that has our name on it that works exactly as they want.
Well, I know as of a couple days ago, a new bill surfaced, as they're always going to.
Yeah.
This one is HR 8051, and what it is they're trying to enforce 1,000% excise tax on any semi-automatic weapon, any magazine, periscoping stock, which makes it unaffordable for anybody. You buy a Glock for $500. With the tax, it's going to cost you $5,000. They're making it so unaffordable. Now, would you exclude your magazines and stocks in your kits if that ever comes to fruition, or how would you maneuver around that?
Well, it's a fair question. I don't know that we've gotten that far in the thought process of what we're doing. I mean, we do not produce magazines in-house. We purchase those to go with the kits, and the same is true for the stocks. And so, I think we might feel differently if it was something that we were producing that was suddenly, I mean, it's hard enough to control costs when you're not dealing with 1,000% tax, right? But so the opportunity to see, again, money, the reason the idea behind using money to control behavior is because money does control behavior. And
Sure.
So, kind of reaching up and pulling a number out of that, saying, okay, how about 1,000%, right? I mean, it seems like a lot of times in negotiation, especially in political realms, like, these kinds of things where, hey, you start with a number that's so outrageously high that suddenly a 200% tax doesn't seem so bad when you're talking 1,000%, right? And so
A lot of money.
the opportunity to to start outrageous and then see, hey, where does it get us, and how do we work our way through it? The good news for us is that we're really pretty small company compared to a lot of the other bigger folks, and so the good news is when something is seemingly is patently unfair to a particular branch of what's happening, to try and somehow circumvent the other means of legislating controls and whatever, where it's just an intent to go after somebody's pocketbook. Those tend to not be able to stand up very long, because unless there's you pull 1,000%, literally you're pulling a number out of the air, right? And so what number should you pick? And that I haven't heard any justification for it other than, hey, we want to make it super expensive so nobody will do it. Well, there's a lot of people's industries and lives that are at stake based on making a decision like that. And almost any other industry, it'd be cries of outrage, right? So we do, I think, in this country, there's a lot of, as a manufacturer, right? There's been a lot of, in the last 10 to 20 years, this, all right, are we outsourcing overseas? Are we reshoring and all this stuff, right? And we as consumers, we want high quality for as little dollars as we can pay, and we'd love to have it made here. And yet, when the pandemic came and interrupted the supply lines,
Yep.
we started being willing to pay more for what we could get, and the stuff that we could get was made domestically. And as the supply chain starts unwinding itself, obviously we are reshoring a lot of stuff, which, making it back in the States, and yet we got accustomed to paying a certain amount for stuff, and we don't like paying more if we can find a cheaper option. And so
Sure.
that balance between our consumer behavior and our kind of nationalistic mindset around where are we going to get our stuff made, oftentimes the dollars are what drives our behavior as consumers more than anything else. And so certainly, those, as the folks in Washington try and pull different levers to get us to behave a certain way, that's all part of the equation. And fortunately or unfortunately for guys like you and me, we don't have a whole lot of control over it other than, talking about it and thinking through, hey, how do we deal with this the best we can, and supporting the folks that are advocating on our industry and our business's behalf, as part of the equation.
Well, we're seeing a lot of bills being drafted as far as, gun control and whatnot, but you're not seeing them go to the floor. So I'm not putting a lot of credence into these bills just yet. And come the midterms, who knows what's going to happen. But, getting back to the banks, when a credit card company or a bank can pick and choose what industry they want to deal with, that really kind of sets a bad precedent, and a very dangerous one at that.
It can. I think, I laugh because, thinking about different industries, right? When I got here 23 some years ago, people say, hey, you do stuff for automotive, and we don't do stuff for it. And we haven't done stuff for automotive because their industry was notorious for bludgeoning suppliers, especially small guys like us.
Yep.
And so, deciding that that's not going to be my customer base for selfish reasons, I don't know if there were times when the automotive industry could have used us, but, one of the beauties of having business is you can decide who you want to deal with. And so I don't begrudge companies for wanting to use whatever criteria they want to determine what is or isn't good business for them. I think the unfortunate flip side of that is where they're trying to make political statements or they are not thinking very clearly on what they're doing, or that it's not the representative of everybody, but it's one or two people who have a specific say. And I say that ironically because, being a guy running a small business, there are certain things that I say around here that end up happening just because it's me who said it, right? And so, leadership in any of these companies can do what they want. I think, we all have choices on what we're going to do and not, and how we subject ourselves and where we spend our time and money, that helps dictate things. And I know our industry deals with social media a lot, and as anybody trying to promote, and we're severely limited on how we can do that. And while I understand it, obviously it limits our ability to do some of the stuff that we can do in other industries or other areas of what we're doing. So, it's not great having an industry that we're working for that has, that gets targeted against it. And yet, I've seen it in other areas for different reasons. And, hey, we do the best we can to do good business.
Well, that's all we can do is the best we can do. But we're running out of time here, but I appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. And we'll have Jim on shortly as well. I want to speak to him about the gun end. But I appreciate your time and hope to see you again soon.
Absolutely. Just a pleasure to get to spend a little more time with you. And I appreciate your, spending some time with our team, and Rick and Jim, have enjoyed the conversations. Look forward to keeping it going. And as you hear stuff, keep us in the loop. All right.
I certainly will.
Awesome.
Thanks again.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right, Andy. Let me